the focal point. Therefore, you are able to get a very, very small spot. Further, if you consider the diffraction of wave uh, for a given acceleration voltage, if you consider both electron beam and ion beam, and they are accelerated at the same voltage, you will find that the wavelength associated with ion beam uh, is much, much smaller than the electron beam. Uh, this is of the order of a few nanometers. So compared to the electron beam, their wavelength associated is much smaller. And if you consider any laser source, then compared to laser wavelength, also it is very small. And if you consider the diffraction theory, then the divergence of the any beam is governed by the wavelength associated with that wave. Since the wavelength of ion beam is much smaller than either laser beam wavelength or electron beam wavelength. Therefore, theoretically, you can focus the ion beam much tinier spot. Therefore, there has been a lot of interest in uh, employing ion beam in creating different types of features through machining as well as through deposition. So these were the aspects which we had been discussing last lecture. We also described the what is the mechanism of material removal. So the mechanism of material removal in case of ion beam is knocking off the atoms through momentum transfer. Since the ions are very heavy, if you consider the argon ion, which are normally used when you are using inert gas ions, or when you are talking about the focused ion beam, usually we use gallium ion. So these gallium ions are very heavy. So when they are accelerated and when they are impinging on the workpiece, then they transfer their kinetic energy as well as momentum. So when they are incident at an angle away from the normal incidence, there is a certain component of the momentum of the ejected particle, or which are getting this momentum from the impinging ions normal away of the surface. So they are ejected out from the surface, and thereby atom by atom the material from the surface are ejected out by the impact of the ions. Therefore, you get very, very uh, mm, like very high degree of resolution in terms of radial as well as along the axial direction. Further, compared to the electron beam, when the electron beam transfer its energy, they transfer its energy in certain volume of the material at the near the top surface, which is of the order of few microns, depending upon what is the accelerating voltage and what is the density of the material. Compared to that, ion beam dissipates its energy in a much smaller layer on the top surface. Therefore, you get very good features uh, uh, machine. Okay, so I will just share the remaining slides which we had been, which were to be discussed in ion beam machining, and then go further to uh, other topic quickly. So let me share this ion beam part. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the focused ion beam system which we had described. So you can see that the ion beam usually is produced. The gallium ion is produced by applying very high electric field, and gallium at room temperature is in liquid form. So you have got a tungsten needle. And the gallium liquid is just like flowing or just sticking on this needle, tungsten needle, and then you have got a very high electric field applied, a negative electric field, and because of this negative electric field, the ions are ejected out from here, positive ions, and the positive ions are accelerated. When they are accelerated, they come in a cone, and then you have got a magnetic lens which tends to make the ion beam parallel. Then we have got an aperture whose opening decides the portion from the central zone from where the ions are extracted out. Entire thing is in a vacuum chamber, and the background pressure is very low in the range of around 10 to power 7 millibar or so. 1000 millibar is one atmospheric pressure. So compared to one atmosphere, the pressure is 10 to power 10 times less inside this chamber. So the ions, without making any collision with any atmospheric gases, they travel. And then when they are traveling, they are focused with the help of the lens 2 onto the workpiece. Now, with this aperture, you can control the amount of current which you are extracting, and depending upon the amount of current required, you open the aperture, and with the help of a lens, magnetic lens, you focus them onto the workpiece. And when they are impinging, we have described on this slide that why the gallium is used. So as you have seen earlier, that it is mm, in the liquid form at room temperature. And the very interestingly, its ionization potential is very small, only 6 electron volt compared to argon atom. Argon has got, with respect to this value, around 13 electron volt, almost double. So these can be ionized. The gallium ion can be ionized by applying electric field, a strong electric field. Okay. So there are other properties which we have listed last time and described. And here we have described how the ion beam, when it is interacting with the material, what would happen. So it will eject the atoms from the surface of the workpiece, and because of the collision with a very high energetic ions, some of them may get also ionized. And so the ejected species will have neutral atoms, some positive atoms, and some secondary electrons which is coming out. Okay. Now here, if you are trying to machine the electrically non-conducting material, then what will happen? These positive ions which are impinging, they will not get neutralized. So what will happen, because it is a non-conducting material and there is no relatively free electrons to neutralize gallium ion, therefore, while you are doing the machining of electrically insulating material, non-conducting material, then there will be positive charge buildup. Once the space charge associated with this accumulated positive charge on the surface becomes very high, then these ions which are trying to come and hit the workpiece will be repelled. Therefore, the machining will get disrupted. So, in order to neutralize this positive ions accumulation here, while you are trying to do the machining of insulating material or dielectric material, there is an auxiliary source of electron which is flowing the electron onto that workpiece in order to neutralize these positive ions. So the focused ion beam system will have the facility of an auxiliary electron beam source as well, which is employed while you are trying to do the machining of the electrically insulating materials, like if you have got the uh, uh, intrinsic silicon wafer, or if you have got the quartz surface, or any insulating material. Also here, schematically has been shown that if you want to deposit any material, then that material can be flown onto the surface, and those molecules are going to get adhered on the surface, and where the focused ion beam is impinging, there these molecules are going to get dissociated, and when they dissociate, then they form a solid dissociation product which gets deposited on the sample, and there is another gaseous part which is coming out after the dissociation, which is sucked out. So, in case of gallium ion focused ion beam, you can do the machining as well as you can do the gas assisted etching as well as deposition. Okay, so all these things can be done in case of ion beam. And the secondary ions and electrons which are coming out from the surface at that from the location where the ion beam is impinging, that can be utilized in order to do the imaging. Okay, so these are the three things which you can do in focused ion beam. You can do machining, you can do the imaging by exploiting or by utilizing the secondary electrons and positive ions which is coming out from that location, as well as you can do the deposition or gas assisted etching. So if you are using reactive gas, and then this reactive gas is going to react when they are dissociated with the positive ion at that location. Then from there only the etching will be done by the reactive gas. And if it is getting dissociated by positive ion and forming a solid atoms and gaseous form, then the solid atoms are going to get deposited, and the gaseous part is going to be released. Okay, so you can do the etching as well as deposition. So this is what has been shown here. You can do imaging, and that time you use very low current so that you do not eject out material from here to very greater extent. You can do the material removal, subtract atoms. So that time your ion current is high, and you can use the chemical reaction gas assisted for deposition as well as etching. Okay, preferential etching wherever the ion beam is impinging, you are going to get the impinging done. Okay, these are the parts which we also discussed last time, that how the broad beams are produced in plasma, as well as by ionizing the gases with the help of electron beam. The part which was remaining was this part, like when we are describing about the gas assisted etching. Okay, so here you can see that how the focused ion beam depicted in red circles, they are impinging, and you are putting this incoming gas molecules which are coming and falling on the surface. This focused ion beam are dissociating this adsorbed gas molecules which are getting dissociated, and you get after the dissociation the solid material as well as the gaseous volatile species. The volatile species are coming out, and solid material is getting deposited. Some amount of sputtering also can take place depending upon what is the ion current, okay, and ion energy. So what has been written here, this adsorption of the gas molecule on the substrate surface, activation of the chemical reaction of the gas molecules with the substrate by the ions and or the electron beam. It depends upon what is the energetic particle coming out. Generation of volatile reaction products, like if you are using your gallium chloride or silicon chloride or silicon fluoride. So all those things, when they get dissociated, you can get either gallium atom, or you can, and the chlorine gas released out, or you can get silicon atom and the chlorine gas in the volatile gas will come out. So like that, or fluorine. So depending upon the type of this vapor of this material you are using, you can get deposition done. And deposition is going to take place only at those locations where focused ion beam is dissociating these molecules. Okay, so this is what has been, deposition has been shown. Okay, so adsorption of chemical precursor. So the gas which is being flown on the surface and which is getting adsorbed, those are known as a chemical precursors, and they decompose into the gaseous molecule and non-volatile solid material which is getting deposited. Okay, so like that you can make very fine features. So all these things can be made which is in then micron and submicron size. Okay, so materials like tungsten, platinum, all these things also you can deposit. Insulating, machining of insulating material like SiO2, quartz you can do. Also, you can use this focused ion beam in depositing the material by or extended ion broad ion beam for deposition. Okay, and this process is known as a sputtering process. Through a sputtering process, you can do the deposition. So in this process, you use two ion beam. One by ion beam is the main ion beam, which is going to ablate the, or sputter, not ablate, the sputter material from a target material. Okay, so here you have got one deposition ion beam in the right side, and in this vacuum chamber you have got a target material. Like if you want to deposit, like let us suppose that I want to coat a film on this substrate, film of quartz, that is the SiO2. So you have got a target here which is basically quartz material, and you have got the substrate. So let us suppose the substrate is silicon, okay, wafer. On that you want to deposit a insulating layer of, thin layer of quartz. So you have got this deposition ion source, the ion source which is shown in the right side, and there is a etching or assist ion source which is in the left side here. So before you start deposition by sputtering process, with this etching or assist ion source, you clean the substrate surface. So at that time, you use very low ion current by the assist ion source, and you can just sputtered out any contamination on the surface of the substrate. This is going to help in making the adhesion of the coating better, stronger. Adhesion will be stronger if your surface is very, very clean. So before you start deposition, you just clean with this assist source, ion source. And once it is cleaned, then you switch this assist ion source, and then you start the deposition ion source, which is going to impinge on the target, and from the target, the target material atom by atom or molecule by molecule, those will be ejected out, and they will be coming and then going to settle on the substrate, and they are going to make a very uniform coating. Now, in order to make very uniform coating, when these like SiO2 molecules, they are settling, the solid particles are settling over there, in order to make the film very coating very uniform, they should diffuse on the surface from the high concentration zone to low concentration zone to make a very uniform coating. So in order to facilitate the diffusion of these molecules, these particles migrating from high concentration point to low concentration point, you can again start your ion assist source at low current, so that they will not sputter, but they will provide enough energy to these particles, so that they can migrate from high concentration point to low concentration point places, zones, so that the coating becomes very, very uniform. Okay, so thereby you can have very good quality of coating, which is porosity blowhole free. There is no blowhole because the particles have migrated and made very, very good quality of coating, as well as good adhesion with the substrate, because you could clean the substrate and provide enough kinetic energy to make to the coated material, so that they can bond properly. Okay, so these two ion sources can be controlled independently to get good quality of the coating of desired properties. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, that you can use this focused ion beam for imaging purpose, and since the ion source can be focused much tightly, much better compared to electron beam, so this picture left side is for the same for the electron beam imaging. This is the like your scanning electron microscope image here. So you can see in the left side, this image is not that resolved as in the right side, which is taken by the ion beam. So you can see that ion beam, because it can be focused more tightly compared to electron beam, produces better quality image with much higher resolution. You can see the details, the sharpness of the image created by the ion beam is much better than what can be achieved by the electron beam. So this imaging can be of better quality compared to the electron beam. Here the etching has been shown. So if you see the scale here, this long scale is only around 5 micron or so. So you can see that in a substrate, like PJ, this piezoelectric transducer material, the milling has been done. So you can see that it is like almost in a micron size, and the features which has been produced here and the detail of the features, if you can see, those are having resolution better than sub-micron. Okay, so some hundreds of nanometer or even less. Okay, so you can see how the etching has been done, and you can see the feature. There is a pillar has been machined in the etched zone. Like that, you can do the etching. Here, this is an example of deposition. So you can see that the nanofabricated structure here, a coil of 700 nanometer pitch and 80 nanometer line width. So this is the thickness is of this only 80 nanometer. So this scale is 1 micron. So this one is 80 nanometer width, and diamond-like amorphous carbon has been deposited with the help of focused ion beam induced chemical vapor deposition. So what in this case has been done, that you have got a substrate, and on the substrate you are putting CH4 gas. Now the CH4, when it is coming, methane gas, and there you are impinging a focused ion beam. Obviously, the ion beam has been focused down to around 100, around 80 nanometer diameter. So wherever the ion beam is imparting energy, there the CH4 is getting dissociated in carbon and hydrogen. So hydrogen is coming out and carbon is going to deposit it on the surface there. Then you continue this process, and thereby you can start slowly depositing and building up this coil. So you can see that with the ion beam, you can deposit material, and you can deposit very fine features. Okay, you can produce. Okay. So these are some of the example of micro machining in order to make diamond tip for atomic force microscopic applications. So 100 nanometer diameter parabolic tip for submicron indentation into hard material is machined by focused ion beam. So you can see the 200 nanometer or thinner column of tungsten or silicon oxide with aspect ratio exceeding 50s to 1 is deposited. So here machining has been shown in the top figure, and at the bottom one, the deposition of different types of material is visible. And after deposition, you can again machine it to make a conical shape, and the tip is of the order of less than 40 nanometer. Okay, so this is the tip is of that order of 40 nanometer. So you can one cannot think making such features by any other method except for the ion beam source. So these are the typical example has been shown here. Okay, so it is used for imaging purpose. Then you can also use for preparing the transmission electron microscopic characterization specimen. You can do the in situ cross sectioning and analysis of devices. Then you can do for repair and modification, mask preparation. Whenever you are trying to make any mask for photolithography, you can do. So here you can see that deposition has been done, nano deposition as well as the machining. So in this single picture, you have got both the things demonstrated. Okay. Here there are some numerical problems, and these are very simple, straightforward, which you can do using the equations which has been given for deposition rate. Okay. So these numericals you just see, and I hope that you can practice and hints as well as the answers are given, so you can do it. Okay, fine. So is there any question from your end for the ion beam machining? Hello, have you got any question? Are you able to hear me? Yes, Pragya, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I accidentally turned on my mic. I'm so sorry for that.
Okay, fine. Okay. So I go to now next topic. If you do not have any question, if you have got any question or any clarification, you can just put on that. On you can share your questions and doubts in the MS team, and then in the chat or in conversation, so I can address, and everybody will be able to see those discussions. Okay. Now, let me go to the second topic, which is planned today. So today, the other topic of our discussion is another non-traditional machining process, and that is the plasma arc machining. So, are you able to see this slide which I have shared now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are going to describe about the plasma arc based machining as well as welding. Okay, so this was first developed by Union Carbide in USA in 1957, and it was done by modifying the tungsten inert gas welding machine. So you know that in tungsten inert gas machine, you have got a tungsten electrode, non-consumable electrode, and you apply high voltage, high electric field between the tungsten electrode and the workpiece, and then there is an electric arc is established. You flow usually the argon gas, inert gas, and inert gas is forming, the arc is forming an inert gas, and depending upon what is the voltage and current, the temperature of this arc could be as high as around 24,000 degree, and you exploit these to do the welding. So tungsten inert gas arc welding process consists of this. Okay. Now, one of the like drawback in TIG welding, this inert tungsten inert gas welding, it was seen that the footprint of this electrical arc on the workpiece used to be relatively large. So you cannot make it very small because the arc which is forming and impinging on the workpiece is in the form of a shower like this, and it used to have very large footprint. So the power density used to be relatively low. Okay. Other difficulties, one more difficulty which was seen is this arc could not be sustained at relatively low current. Whenever you wanted to do the welding or joining of thin sheet less than 1 millimeter thickness, then that required relatively low power of the arc, and in order to reduce the power you had to reduce the electrical current. So as soon as you go below 10 ampere current, the arc used to become unstable. Sometimes it will fire, sometimes it will just cease off, it will stop. So that used to make very uneven welding. Sometimes when you start the arc again, then it will just puncture, it will cut through the thin sheet, so you are not able to do the welding. So these were the difficulties seen in this. So there had been some research going on how to improve upon that. So what they modified, how they modified this, they, in order to restrict the spread of this arc, they put a water cooled copper nozzle with a small opening. Opening is of the order of a millimeter or so, and then they put the gas coming out from here around the electrode, and that gas was flowing through this. So what happens now, that initially there is an arc taking place between the central tungsten electrode and the copper nozzle here, and when the gas is flowing through this arc, then it gets ionized. And as you go on increasing the current, then the ionization current also increases, and this ionized gas is coming at a very high speed depending upon what is the gas flow velocity, what is the gas pressure, and they impinge on the plasma, impinge on the workpiece. As you go on increasing the current, and if you go in the range of more than several tens of ampere, 100 ampere like that, very intense plasma, that is the positive and negative charge particle, because of the ionization of this gas in this arc, they are flown and they are impinging on the workpiece. So thus a plasma is created, and that is coming out at a very high speed, and they are impinging on the workpiece. Now, what they found, that when you are putting this, flowing this gas through this nozzle, the footprint of this plasma area on the workpiece is much smaller than what you get the footprint of the arc in TIG machine. Therefore, the power density became very, very high. So when the power density became high, then in this case, the temperature could go to around 24,000 degree here. Sorry, last time I mentioned in case of arc that it could go up to 25, 24,000. No, it is in the range of around, maximum is around 18,000. And by the time it is reaching on the workpiece in case of arc, it is in the range of around, maximum is in the range of around 10 to 14,000. But in this case of plasma arc, since the uh, footprint of the plasma impinging on the workpiece was much smaller, therefore the power density became very high. And in this case, the maximum temperature at the tip of the tungsten electrode was in the range of around more than 25, 24,000 degree, and the plasma temperature hitting on the workpiece was in the range of around 15,000 to 20,000 Kelvin. Further, since the arc was being established first between the electrode and the nozzle here, this could be sustained at much smaller current. Now, when thereby you could sustain even at 1 ampere current also. So the plasma is creating by passing a gas through an electrical arc and is passed through a water cooled narrow nozzle. As the plasma passes through the water cooled copper nozzle, the plasma gets constricted. The arc sustaining voltage is increased compared to the tick because the resistance of this channel is relatively large compared to the case of arc here. Therefore, the power dissipated, power which is equal to voltage multiplied by the current. So the voltage being slightly increased, you get more power dissipated in the plasma. The plasma temperature is increased considerably. The power density is much higher on the workpiece compared to in case of T. So with this, they developed the machine for the cutting, welding, and surface deposition purpose. So here, this is the operating working principle. So the plasma arc torch consists of a tungsten electrode placed inside a water-cooled copper jacket. So you have got a water jacket made of copper, and it has got at its this end a small orifice opening through which the plasma, the gas and the plasma could flow out. Okay. Now, the copper jacket at its end has a constricting nozzle with a small orifice. So that is, this is the construction of the nozzle here. Now, the electrical connection. The tungsten electrode is connected to the negative terminal. So the negative terminal on this tungsten electrode is connected of a DC power supply, and the electrically conductive workpiece is connected with the positive or relatively ground earth. Okay, so the workpiece is connected here. So the electrons are going to flow, which is ejected from the electrode, and they are going to come and then impinge on the workpiece. Okay. The nozzle, a copper nozzle is connected to a high frequency generator. So in order to initiate the arc, first you have got a high frequency generator which is connected with this nozzle. So first what you do, that you first provide with the help of this high frequency generator, you initiate a pilot arc between the electrode and copper nozzle. So when you apply high frequency voltage between this central tungsten electrode and copper nozzle, there is a pilot arc is created. Now, in this, the current flowing is much smaller, and this current is controlled by these resistance. Okay, so this resistance is put in order to control the current through this. Okay, otherwise, if too much current is flowing through this, then this electrode copper tip may get heated up and then it may get damaged. Now, as you increase your gas pressure and current, slowly, with the gas pressure and the gas is getting ionized, and because it is flowing through this, then this arc is going to travel towards along the orifice. It will tend to come out, and as you go on further increasing the current, and when it is near the workpiece, initially the impedance between the nozzle tip and the workpiece is very high because there is no ionized charge particle here in the atmosphere, very little. So initially there will be no current directly flowing from the electrode between the electrode and workpiece. But as the hot plasma, this ionized charge, positive ions and electrons are coming and they are flowing over here, the impedance is going to slowly reduce, and therefore this is going to now bridge the circuit, and the current will start flowing from the nozzle, from the electrode, tungsten electrode directly to the workpiece, and very little current thereafter will flow through the copper tip. Okay, so in that case, if you wish, that time you can switch off this high frequency generator also, and it will sustain. Okay, but if you want to operate this machine at a low current, then you keep this on, so that always this will assist in keeping the plasma current established in a stable manner. Okay, so this is the different stages through which the plasma arc is formed, and then it is flown up to the workpiece. So the plasma arc machine can deliver up to 1000 ampere, 1 kiloampere current at approximately 200 volt, and generate plasma temperature up to 33,000 degrees centigrade. Okay, so very high temperature it can generate, and this is mainly compared to TIG because the footprint is very small, relatively small, so power densities are very high. Okay. So if you see the equipment, the plasma arc machine, it will have these are the important part of the machine. The main important part is the plasma torch. Then you have got a power supply. Then you have got the arc starting current, that is the high voltage, high frequency generator. Then you require a gas supply, then water cooling, water system to cool the nozzle tip, and the control console. Okay, so the plasma torch, which is really the heart of the machine, holds the non-consumable tungsten electrode and the nozzle, and gas is flown swirling around the electrode. So what is done is the gas is supplied in tangential manner, so that it is going to go around the electrode, and in that case it is going to make a vortex, and at the center of the vortex the impedance is going to be minimum, so the current plasma is going to flow through that vortex in order to provide a very concentrated plasma channel which is impinging onto the workpiece. Okay, so here you can see that you have got the power source. This is the central electrode, tungsten electrode. This is the copper nozzle, which is water cooled. And you also provide a secondary gas, shielding gas, which is coming out and shields the workpiece, especially in case of when you are using this plasma arc machine for welding purpose. For cutting purpose, you don't need this shielding gas. Okay. Now, the type of the plasma torch, a lot of activities, lot of research has been done, and the thrust of this research is to develop different types of torch which can provide, with the emphasis that it constricts the plasma to produce high temperature, so that you can get good quality cutting of thicker material with narrow curved edge. Excuse me. So in due course of time, these are the 4 different types of nozzles the torch were developed. Okay. So let us see that what are the types. So the first is the dual gas nozzle. So it is similar to conventional arc cutting machine, where we have got a central electrode and copper tip, but here you have got another annular ring around this nozzle, through which you are flowing a shielding gas. Okay. It tends to constrict the, depending upon the angle in which the shielding gas is coming, it is going to force the plasma to move towards the axial direction, so that the plasma gets more constricted. Okay. And you can also utilize this assist shielding gas for assisting the cutting. So this will describe here. Okay. So in this case, the primary gas which is forming the plasma is nitrogen gas. So the nitrogen is being flown through the central portion of the nozzle of the torch, along with the around the tungsten electrode, and that is forming the plasma, and which is coming out from the through the orifice opening of the copper tip. Then you have got the shielding gas, and this shielding gas, the different varieties of shielding gas has been utilized. You use oxygen gas for cutting mild steel. Okay, so in that case, the oxygen is going to provide assist the to create the oxidation reaction in case of cutting the ferrous material, and that is going to provide additional heat, as we have seen in case of oxygen assisted laser cutting. Okay, good amount of oxidation, exothermic oxidation reaction heat is generated. Okay, you can use CO2 gas as a assist shielding gas in case of cutting stainless steel. Here also the CO2 gets dissociated with oxygen. So there also the oxidation reaction, controlled oxidation reaction, can improve the cut quality. In case of cutting the aluminum, you don't want the aluminum surface to get oxidized, because the melting temperature of aluminum oxide is much, much higher than aluminum metal. Okay. Therefore, in order to avoid any possible oxidation, you use inert gas, mixture of argon and helium mixture you use. And through various experimentation, it has been seen that when you are using these assist shielding gas for cutting different types of material, you get better quality. So another advantage is that since you are providing a annular like jacket, which is usually made of ceramic material, and around that you are flowing the shielding gas. Through this, no, this is protruding slightly out compared to this copper tip. So the copper tip is protected from that more current cannot flow, doesn't flow through this. So there is no damage to the this copper tip. That is the double arcing and shorting with workpiece is eliminated. The shorting between the workpiece and the copper nozzle. So directly the current then flows through the central electrode and the workpiece, not via this. So you do not have the double arcing taking place, and that helps in controlling the damage of the copper tip. Okay, so the nozzle life is increased because it eliminates the double arcing and shorting with the workpiece with the nozzle. Okay, cool shield gas protects ceramic cup and nozzle from thermal damage, because your shielding gas is coming, which is relatively cool compared to the plasma here. So it is going to also prevent thermal damage of both. Cutting speed and quality on stainless steel and aluminum similar to conventional process. Cutting speed of mild steel better than with conventional cutting, but cut quality was inadequate for many applications because of the excessive oxidation. Okay, so dual torch, which was developed in order to improve the conventional plasma arc cutting machine torch, where there was only the central electrode and copper nozzle, it had improved to certain amount for mild steel cutting, but for SS and aluminum, there was no much improvement. So the research continued, and the next type of nozzle which was developed was the air plasma torch. So here, instead of nitrogen, you use air, in which there is a good amount of nitrogen as well as oxygen. And since you have got oxygen in air, so that supports exothermic burning in metals such as steel, and this increases the cutting speed by almost 25%. So here, instead of nitrogen gas, you are using air, and that air plasma is coming, and that is being utilized for cutting. So you get good quality cutting in mild steel. However, oxidation on cut edges in SS and aluminum was very much there. Therefore, it was not very good for cutting aluminum, especially because the oxygen could cause oxidation. Less dross compared to nitrogen plasma cutting you get in case of mild steel cutting. This is because in case of steel material, this iron oxide is having much less, relatively less melting temperature than the metal, steel metal, and its viscosity, it is less viscous, so they are very easily removed by the high pressure plasma flow, high plasma velocity. So shear force of the plasma is going to remove very easily all the molten material, and it can eject out the molten material very nicely. However, the biggest problem was the electrode erosion because of the presence of oxygen. Tungsten got oxidized fast in presence of oxygen air. So thereafter, some of the air plasma torch, they utilize zirconium and hafnium electrode cathodes, but these are a bit costly. So this was not very popular, but in some of the applications, particularly for mild steel cutting, these are being used. Other problem is the nozzle tends to wear out fast due to double arcing. That is, the arc is taking place from nozzle, central tip to the nozzle, and then nozzle to workpiece. So the current used to breeze through this, so this used to get damaged a little bit. Okay. So the next came that, okay, when you are trying to use oxygen gas in case of cutting of mild stainless steel, and if you see that in industry, steel is one of the very commonly used engineering material. Therefore, for cutting steel, mild steel and carbon steel, the especially the oxygen injected torch was developed. So here, primary gas you use for plasma generation is the nitrogen gas. So the nitrogen gas plasma is coming, and there is an annular ring around this in which you flow the oxygen gas. So you inject the oxygen gas. So this oxygen is injecting downstream at the exit of the nozzle. So from here it is injected. So this circumvented the electrode life problem, because now you are producing nitrogen plasma. So oxidation of the tungsten electrode was prevented, and you can improve, you can prevent the damage of the tungsten electrode from oxidation. However, the benefit of oxidation energy in cutting ferrous material at high speed was achieved because of the oxygen injection. So this oxygen, this angle of impinging oxygen is made such that it is going to concentrate the plasma, nitrogen plasma, in a much better way, as well as it is going to assist in cutting of ferrous material. But major disadvantage was lack of cut squareness. It was having big baffle type of cut, more on the top and less in the bottom. Excessive kerf removal, lot of oxidation reaction material, molten material were getting were ejected out. So large kerf width was we were getting. Short nozzle life, still the nozzle life was not very high. Only attractive for mild steel. So it had a limited versatility for cutting other materials. Okay, different materials could not be used. Particularly aluminium, you cannot cut because the formation of aluminium oxide. But for mild steel, which is again very commonly used engineering material, for that it was being used. Now the last development was the water injected torch. So in place of oxygen injection, in nitrogen plasma, you inject water. It is very interesting, and you can see that how it improved the quality of the plasma torch. Okay. So this water is injected radially or swirling vertical cone to constrict the plasma. So either it is formed in the cone or it will be put in a swirling manner so that the plasma becomes more constricted. Only 10% of the water impinging on the plasma is vaporized. So rest of the things is hot air, water mist will come out, but only 10% is getting vaporized. Okay, so it is not consuming a very high power of the plasma. But what advantage it gave, that it it focused the plasma beam in a more tighter way, thereby it increased the plasma temperature to almost 50,000 Kelvin. Okay, so one would expect that water may have the cooling effect, but no, there was no cooling effect. Instead, a thin layer of vapor constricts the plasma and increase the plasma temperature from ordinarily you get around 30,000, it increased to almost 50,000 Kelvin. It also prevented double arcing, thus protects the nozzle. So the water is going to cool the nozzle, and it is also going to prevent the double arcing, and thereby it increased the nozzle life. It improved the cut squareness, increased the cutting speed because of very high temperature and very focused plasma beam. Dross elimination in mild steel cutting because the shear force of the water, which is also coming along the plasma, was much higher. Other benefits, it reduced the smoke and noise. Okay, and because of the cooling effect of the water on the workpiece, it also reduced the heat affected zone. So you get a smaller heat affected zone. Increased nozzle life and limited oxide formation on the cut edge. So with the water injection in this plasma machine, you improve the cutting capability of this plasma torch very, very significantly. So this is most popularly used. So typical parameter is like you use nitrogen plasma for a cutting gas. Pressure is in the range of around 1 megapascal, that is around 10 atmospheric pressure maximum. The flow rate is in the range of around 80 liter per minute. Water pressure is around 0.2 megapascal, less than like it is of the order of how much it will be. 0.2 is around 2 atmospheric pressure, and you get around flow rate of the water is in the range of 7 to 10 liter per minute. So relatively less water, much higher nitrogen gas flow compared to the water flow. Okay. However, when you are using swirling plasma, there is an issue of the cut quality. So when you are using swirling plasma in water injected torch cutting, then what will happen that let us suppose that your plasma is swirling in a clockwise. So the plasma is coming in this fashion. So what will happen that when you are cutting a workpiece, a plate, and you are entering from this edge inside the plate, then what will happen? Because of the swirling motion of the plasma, more heat is going to be imparted on the left side of the edge compared to the right side of the edge. So what will happen? There will be certain amount of bevel cut on the left side compared to on the right side. So the right side will have the square surface, that is the normal to the top surface, you will get straight cut edge, but in the left side you are going to get bevel cut because your plasma is swirling in the clockwise direction, and when you are entering from these, the swirling plasma is going to dissipate more heat in the left side. So let us suppose you want to get a good quality square annular ring from a plate. So you try to allow the bevel formation on the west piece. So if this is the useful part, then in order to get the square cut, in order to cut the outer annulus, you enter from this edge, from the left side, and with the clockwise swirling plasma, and you come out from here. So you are going to get the square cut on the outer edge of the annulus here. Now, if you want to cut the inner edge of the annular ring, so you should not enter from this edge, because if you enter from this edge again, this side will have the bevel cut. So what you do that you enter from the right side, from this edge. So when you are entering from this edge, then on the scrap portion of the center part, the bevel cut will be produced, and the inner edge of the annular ring, which is the part which is going to be used, that will have the relatively more square cut. So thereby you can control the quality of the cut edge. Okay, so this is what you have to control in. Okay. So this is showing the power source of the, you use a constant DC current source, and also the speed and cut thickness are determined by amount of the output current. And in order to have the arc starting circuit, you have a high frequency circuit which produces high AC current. So this is the high frequency, which is just applying power to initiate the pilot arc. Pilot arc is produced between the central electrode and the copper nozzle tip. And then you flow the, while you are flowing the nitrogen gas, which is a primary gas, that gets ionized. So ionized gas is coming out, and it then bridges, it makes a conductive channel, then the current starts flowing between the central electrode and the workpiece. So the main current is then being flown, main current which is provided by the DC power source then flows like this. Okay, and the pilot arc current flows like this. Okay, the pilot arc will be flowing from this source like this. Okay. Now, in order to do the processing of conducting material like steel, aluminum, and other things, you can transfer the arc plasma onto the workpiece, because your workpiece is connected with the positive terminal of the power source. So the current is going to flow from electrons are going to flow like this. So it will be flowing, the electrons will be flowing like this from the central nozzle to the workpiece through the power source, it will be flowing. So this is known as a transferred arc. And here, the this mode of transfer arc is mostly used for processing the electrically conducting material, because you can directly flow the current through the workpiece. And the energy transfer efficiency could be very high. It is around 85 to 90%. So the efficiency is very good. So it is used for cutting, welding, and surfacing of electrically conducting workpiece. However, if you are trying to do the cutting or surfacing of non-conducting material, then you cannot connect the workpiece with the power supply, because there will be no current flow through that. So in that case, if you want to do, if you want to utilize this plasma to do any processing on a non-conducting material, then you allow the plasma to form between through the arc between the central electrode and nozzle. So the main current is flowing through the central electrode and the copper nozzle. However, the hot plasma is passing through positive and negative charge particles, positive ions and electrons are forced through, and they are impinging on the workpiece, thereby is heat is transferred, and these electron and ions afterwards is going to get neutralized here. So you are flowing the positive and negative charge particles to the workpiece, that is the plasma is transferring the heat up to here. Okay, since current is passing through this nozzle, so the it has got relatively less efficiency. It is 75% maximum power can be transferred to the workpiece. It is suitable for arc spray and machining non-conducting materials like ceramic. Thus, you can use this plasma arc in two different modes. One is transferred arc, where the plasma is transferred directly to the workpiece. Another is the non-transferred arc, where the arc is taking place between the electrode and nozzle, and heat is carried to the workpiece by the plasma gas. Okay. These are the various parameters. So you have got the arc current, voltage, electrode gap. Okay, so that is going to determine what is the power of the plasma. Electrode gap is determined what is the sustaining voltage for the arc. Primary gas could be air or nitrogen. So the nitrogen takes a certain amount of energy to get dissociated in nitrogen atom, and when they are impinging on the workpiece, then again they recombine and form nitrogen molecules. Say they again gives the energy which is getting released when they are recombining this enthalpy, they give back to the workpiece. Okay, so this way the nitrogen is very efficient and effective carrier of heat. Okay, secondary gas, you use oxygen, argon, hydrogen, or mixture of hydrogen and argon. Oxygen adds energy through exothermic oxidation process in case of steel material. Hydrogen and hydrogen mixture provide higher cutting speed due to higher enthalpy. Again, hydrogen, when it dissociates, it utilizes certain amount, it takes certain amount of heat, and when it is recombining again on the surface to form the hydrogen molecule, that time it releases that energy, thereby they transfer good amount of heat there. There are different types of torch which you have seen, and the torch, it depends on the cathode size, shape, nozzle opening, the length of the nozzle, electrode gap, electrode gas flow rate. So these are the things which decides the torch design and differentiate them. Then the gas flow configuration, vortex stabilized torch flow tangential to the cathodes when they are going to come in a spiral manner. It gives better efficiency, but asymmetric cut edge, as you have seen the swirling water injected swirling plasma cutting process. Also, you can have the sheath stabilized torch where the gas is flowing tangential to the workpiece directly over the surface. It is having less efficiency, but it gives the uniform cut edges. High speed gas flow. You can have very high speed, then it will give you the turbulent mode, and that time you will get the short flame, and you can have a current up to the short flame length will be in the range of around 150 millimeter at around 400 ampere. It is suitable for cutting and melt blasting and spraying, where you don't need very long flame. If you are using low gas pressure of the plasma primary gas as well as the secondary gas, you get laminar mode, and you can get very long flame. The flame length could be up to 900 millimeter, almost nearing 1 meter. It is suitable for welding, melting ceramic where no sputtering is desired. Okay, so you can use very like relatively low gas pressure and get very long flame. Then you have got the cutting nozzle dimension. It could be around 3 to 5 millimeter length, and the diameter 3 to 5 millimeter diameter for cutting nozzle, and for long 25 to 100 millimeter with 3 to 5 millimeter diameter opening for laminar welding torch. So depending upon the different types of application, you can use different types of nozzle tip. Okay. This slide tells us about the process capability. It can cut different types of material: steel, aluminum, brass, titanium. Cutting speed, cutting thickness could be up to 200 millimeter. But in industrial applications, practically you cut around 3 to 75 millimeter because that is the thickness of the material you normally use in industry. Cutting speed, typically 5 to 8 times faster than what you can get from the conventional oxyacetylene cutting method. Okay, so it is faster. Cutting speed is inversely proportional to material thickness. This is well understandable. For depending upon the type of material and material thickness, you can get in case of steel, the cutting speed you can get around 25.4 by T, where the T is the thickness in millimeter and S is meter per minute is the cutting speed you can get. This is for around, typically for around 500 ampere current. Cutting speed depends on the material characteristics. Aluminium cuts 25% faster than steel for all operating parameters, for all kept constant. This is the aluminium has got relatively low melting temperature. Curve width, typically you get around 1.5 to 3 millimeter for thin plates, around 5 millimeter for 1 inch 25 millimeter thick plates, and large curve width around 19 millimeter for 100 millimeter plates you can get. So this is typical the curve width you can get. Tolerance depends on the thickness of the material. It could be less than a millimeter for plate thickness up to 25 millimeter, and higher for higher thickness could be of the order of around 3 millimeter for thickness more than 150 millimeter. You get also taper angle depending upon process parameter. It could be 5 to 7 degree. Okay. Surface finish reasonably good. You can get up to 5 to 7.5 micron, and heat affected zone could be around 0.75 to 5 millimeter depending upon the thickness. Okay, so these are the typical characteristics I just mentioned. Okay, so this just tells you the advantages, so you can just go through this. Okay, now this machine has been also used for this is some of the disadvantages and applications has been written, so you can quickly go through this. Okay, and this summarizes the arc machine operating characteristics. Okay, and this machine has been also used for welding purpose, and since it gives much smaller footprint, so one can get relatively high temperature and better weld quality. Okay, so here you can see that you are using the plasma which is shown in the yellowish color, and you have got the shielding gas. So this plasma, high temperature plasma, is going to melt the workpiece, and the shielding gas is going to protect the molten pool from getting oxidized. Okay, and since the power density compared to gas tungsten arc welding is high, therefore you get deeper penetration. Another advantage of this plasma arc welding is that since the velocity of the torch is very high, then in thin sheet it can create a what is called the keyhole, similar to electron beam and laser beam welding process. In case of laser and electron beam, the keyhole is produced because of the vapor which is created and which is giving a required pressure. But unlike that, here the plasma which is impinging, that gives a lot of pressure on the molten pool, and thereby the molten pool is slightly pushed towards the wall and producing a key hole, and through that the plasma arc can penetrate in a sheet up to 3 millimeter to 5 millimeter, and thereby it can create the keyhole sort of a welding without using any filler material. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of plasma arc welding machine. Other advantage is that you can operate the plasma arc sustained by the pilot arc between the nozzle and the copper tip with very low current. So you have the plasma microplasma with current in the range of around 0.1 ampere to 15 ampere. So low current you cannot maintain in TIG. Therefore, this became a very important attribute of the plasma arc welding process, because you can sustain the plasma at relatively very low current, and thereby it facilitated welding of thin materials. Okay, so that was a biggest advantage of using plasma arc welding process compared to TIG. The medium current, when you are using 15 to 200 ampere, These process characteristics of the plasma arc are similar to that of the TIG arc. However, because the plasma is constricted, arc is more concentrated, thus is capable to weld faster and better than TIG. And when you had high current, where your plasma gas flow is also high, a very powerful plasma beam is created, which can create a keyhole and achieve full penetration in a material, as in case of laser and electron beam welding. During welding, the hole progressively cuts through the metal, with the molten weld pool flowing behind to form the weld bed under gravity, surface tension, and gas pressure of the shielding gases. This process can weld thicker material up to 8 mm of steel, 10 mm of tungsten in a single pass without any preparation, that is V groove preparation of the workpiece. So that was one of the another very big advantage of using plasma arc welding process. Okay. So if you compare the TIG welding and plasma arc welding, for the thin material up to 3 millimeter, you didn't require any surface preparation. You can have the square surfaces, put them nearby, and in case of your SMAW, you use some filler material, as well as with a certain gap you put, and then you can put the filler material. And in also in manual TIG also you put the filler material to bridge the gap between these two. But in case of plasma arc machine, because the plasma arc can produce keyhole and penetrate directly up to 3 millimeter thickness, therefore you could keep the two pieces very close by with a minimum gap, and then without any filler material you can join them together. So in one single run you can do it. When you have got thickness of around 6 millimeter or so, then in case of SMAW as well as TIG, GTAW, you require the edges to be made like V groove by making bevel surfaces, and then use the filler material, which is going to bridge this gap in both the cases. But in case of plasma arc machine up to 6 millimeter, again you can create the what is called your keyhole welding, deep penetration keyhole welding. You can do it. Okay. And if you have got more than 8 millimeter, then in case of conventional welding, you require to make the V groove, which is filled by multiple passes of welding in case of TIG as well as SMAW. But in case of plasma arc, you have to prepare leaving the bottom 6 millimeter to be welded through keyhole welding in one pass, and the rest of the material needs to be then filled with the filler material. So this is the way you do the plasma arc welding for thicker material. So bottom up to 5 to 6 millimeter, you keep it straight, where in first pass you achieve the welding done by the keyhole welding without any filler material or with little filler material, and then when the bevel, the top groove is filled by the next pass. Okay, so it has been seen that if you have got the 10 millimeter or a thick plate, then by keyhole welding from the top and bottom, you can do the welding in two passes without preparing the bevel edges. Okay, so that can be also done. Okay, so the key process variables, the current type and the electrode polarity. The standard DC power source with electrode as a cathode is used. Sometimes plasma is used as AC square wave for aluminum and magnesium in order to remove the oxide layers if there is any oxide layer form. And current is varied from 0.5 ampere to around 1.2 kiloampere. Okay, you can use either DC or modulated at around up to 20 kilohertz. Okay, gas flow rate. It is a critical variable, must be carefully controlled based upon the current, orifice diameter and shape, gas mixture and the base material and the thickness. So the gas flow needs to be controlled in order to sustain the keyhole. Filler material feed rate. Okay, so these are the parameter for the welding. This describes the advantage compared to TIG, which is apparent. So those are all mentioned here and some of the applications. Now, this has been also used for this plasma for cladding, like on different types of substrate material. So here you have got a plasma arc which is coming out from here, and from the another annular nozzle, with the help of a carrier gas, you are flowing a powder, which could be metal powder, alloy, or a ceramic powder, which is now getting injected in the plasma. They get partially melted, and along with this plasma, they are impinging on the workpiece, and then you can deposit on any surface. So the surface is also going to get heated up by the hot plasma, and this partially melted these particles, they are also going to heat the surface and form a very good quality of coating. So the plasma transfer arc surfacing, this is to coat functional areas with special material which are resistance again intensive wear, corrosion, thermal, and percussive loading. So if you have got the intermittent loading on the surface, the substrate material, like if it is made of steel material, that gets wear out, then you can increase the surface hardness by putting a relatively high material coating like sterlite, cobalt-based alloy, or composite material like sterlite and tungsten carbide, like that you can coat. Or you can deposit aluminum oxide, alumina coating, you can to improve the surface quality. Additive powder is fed into the arc column, as I mentioned here. Process parameter to be controlled for minimum dilution, like the melting of the substrate is controlled by controlling the process parameter. However, you want to have good metallurgical bond between the clad layer and the base material. Okay, and this should not get melted, so that needs to be controlled. Argon gas is used for plasma arc and also for carrier gas and shielding. Okay, so here the 2-3 different configuration has been shown to show how the powder can be injected. It could be through a single side nozzle like this. It could be from a annular ring like here has been shown here, or it can be also flown along with the plasma gas. Okay, so the most popular is this one because it gives omnidirectional coating in all the direction, and here you can control the plasma current, plasma pressure nicely, independent all the carrier gas flow. Okay, which is carrying the powder. Okay, so Compared to conventional arc surfacing technology, you can get high deposition rate up to 10 kg per hour. You can deposit high quality deposit. Minimum penetration or dilution into the base material you can control less than 5%. Minimum loss of filler material, that is the material which you are adding. Deposits between 0.5 to 5 millimeter thickness. And 3 to 50 millimeter wide width can be produced rapidly in a single pass. You can deposit iron-based, nickel-based, cobalt-based, copper-based alloys as well as composite material. In comparison to laser surfacing, laser cladding, the plasma arc transfer arc technology could offer much more higher productivity, comparable high quality of deposit, and significantly lower cost. This shows some of the engineering component, like it is a engine valve. The engine valve, this is the portion which gets wear out. So here you can deposit the hard facing material like stellite, cobalt based alloy. Okay, so you can do that. Here you can see that a annular what is called a screw type of deposition is made on a cylindrical surface. Here again, this portion tends to wear out because of the percussion loading, intermittent loading. So here this portion gets wear out on the workpiece, so you can deposit hard facing material here. Here an example is the cutting edge of a big knife, where the which gets wear out because of the shearing effect. So you can do the hard facing. Okay, so all different types of material can be hard faces with a plasma arc machine. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this plasma arc machine. Okay. So now, if you have got any question, you can ask me. Any question? No. So we have got another couple of minutes. Can I touch upon another topic quickly? Okay. So I will just touch upon another topic which is very, very interesting and very simple. So you can just have a look on that. Okay. So hello, are you able to see this new slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a very simple concept, and the topic is high energy rate forming. So you are aware of the conventional forming, where you take a blank sheet and put over a mold, and then you have got a punch with which you punch that and you shape that workpiece. But if you have got a very large workpiece like this dome, which is having around a meter or several meter diameter, then it becomes very difficult to make this type of forming process by conventional method of like mechanical applying mechanical force with the help of a some motor and or hydraulic press and then do the shaping. Okay. Uh, uh, and if also this type of shape has to be given or such corrugated shape has to be built, then making this type of shape, which is in the right side, I was trying to show this type of flared ribs. By conventional method, it is slightly difficult to make. Okay, so in order to mm, form this type of shape, one non-conventional method of forming mm, uh, has been devised. Okay, and that is the high energy rate forming. So, how this forming process is different from the conventional forming rate? So the main characteristics or main difference compared to the conventional method of forming is that in this process, the forming process velocity is very, very high. So the main characteristics of high energy rate forming is not high energy, but it is the rate. That is, it utilizes very high forming velocity compared to conventional forming process. And here is the comparison. If you consider the hydraulic press, or if you see the brake press, or the mechanical press, or the hammer drop, they have got the velocity. If you consider in meter per second, it is in the range of 3 centimeter per second, 3 centimeter per second. Maximum gas actuated ramp is going to give you around 82 meter per second is the velocity. Okay, but in case of high energy rate forming, either by all these methods like explosive high energy rate forming, of magnetic high energy rate forming, or electrohydrolytic high energy rate forming, the speed of velocity of forming could be as high as 228 meter per second. So the high velocity of the forming rate or the forming differentiates this type of forming process from the conventional forming method. Also, the way the energy is applied. Okay, the method. So here, as you can appreciate, that there are three different types of methods which we will describe shortly. With that, you can provide energy from few tens of joule to gigajoule amount of energy you can produce. When you are using explosive material, you can use gigajoule of energy. And when you are doing the magnetic forming, that time you can even use around 10 joule of energy and do the forming. So it is not the high energy, but you get very high energy range. But what you get is the high energy, this forming velocity. So there are three different types of processes: electromagnetic, that is the magnetic forming process; explosive forming process, and you have got the electrohydraulic forming process. So this also tells you the how the energy is going to be produced. So in case of electromagnetic forming process, you have got these four essential components. You have got a electrical coil made usually of copper. Then you have got a die, which is usually a negative part of the die. You whatever shape you want to make, so negative part of that you make in the die. Then you have got a power source, electrical power source, which can provide you very high amount of current. And then the workpiece, of course, the you want to form. So the workpiece, usually you use the electrically conductive workpiece. And if you have a poor electrically conductive material, then you use a conductive metal driver or coating for poor electrical conductor workpieces. So what is the process? So let us suppose, and you take an example to understand the process here. You have a copper tube and you want this copper tube to be creamed over a nozzle in order to make a watertight connector. So this nozzle, over this nozzle you want to crimp, you want to clamp the a copper tube. So what you do, you take this nozzle or this inner part, over that you place this copper, and on that copper you put a coil. So this coil which I am talking about, this coil is placed here. Here it has been shown that this is the coil here. Now in this coil, you pass momentarily a very high amount of current by discharging a capacitor. So this capacitor is charged with the help of a current source power supply, and by switching it, you pass a very high current here. So when this current, time variable current is passing through this, it is going to generate a magnetic field which is also varying in time. This time varying magnetic field is going to produce ED current in this copper tube, and this ED current is also going to generate a magnetic field which will be whose direction will be opposite to the magnetic field produced by the coil. So these two magnetic field is going to repel each other. Therefore, what will happen, that coil which is very rigidly clamped over this surface, that will not be able to expand, but this copper tube is going to be pressed against this nozzle, and thereby it is going to get pressed and formed and God is going to be uh, 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 crimped over the this nozzle. Okay, so this is the basic process. So you have got the coil and job and die. These are kept at very close proximity. High pulse current is passed through the coil by discharging energy stored in the capacitor. Current in the coil produces magnetic field. Time varying magnetic field induces ED current in the workpiece. In turn, ED current in workpiece produces magnetic field, which repels the coil magnetic field. Equal and opposite forces exerts on coil and workpiece. Workpiece is pressed against the die and gets formed. It can produce pressure of 345 megapascal at around 130 kiloampere pulsed current. Okay, so this is the basic process. So here, what has been shown here, if you have to flare out like this, so you can put a like two half of the die around this tube, and the coil is placed inside, pass the current through this, so this portion is going to flare out like this. So when you take the two half apart, this is going to get flared like this. Here it is showing how it has got radially compressed and how it is got radially expanded. And if you have got a sheet which you want to form, then you have got a coil which is this shape of a like a heater coil you have seen. So like this, you make a flat coil, and then you have got a die on that. You just keep this sheet, and you can make this forming. Okay. If you have got a relatively poor electric conducting material like stainless steel you want to form, so you have got one piece die here, and you want to you want to form this stainless steel. Then what you do, that you put a aluminum high conducting aluminum sheet here as a driving plate, and then you have got the flat coil. So when you pass the current in this coil, then it is going to produce eddy current on the aluminum driver, and aluminum driver is going to also, this eddy current is going to produce magnetic field. This is going to repel from the flat coil, and this is going to fly, pressing this stainless steel disc on the die, and thereby you can uh, give the shape. Okay, you can form this steel plate. Okay, and now this is a aluminum driver is going to be sacrificed out, because once you are using and it is getting deformed, then you have to, for another piece of stainless steel, you have to use another thin sheet of aluminum. This could be in the form of a foil. You can have like 50 micron, 100 micron aluminum foil, which will work, or you can have a coating on this stainless steel of the aluminum paint, which is going to give you the eddy current. It will facilitate it to flow. Okay. Advantages are only one die, no requirement for part lubrication, easily automated with high rates of production, applicable for high volume production, particularly if you want to make this type of flaring and other things, you can do at a very, very fast rate. Disadvantages: coil replacement sometimes limits the configurations. Like if you want to have complicated shapes, then making a coil becomes or the replacement becomes difficult or time consuming. High capital cost, especially of the power source. Limited size and thickness of the job which can be handled, and potentially safety hazard because you are using very high current, high voltage power source. Capacitors are charged at a very high voltage and to give you very high pulse current. The second method is that explosive forming. So instead of your magnetic field, magnetic force, you are using a explosive material. It could be like cartridge, gunpowder.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but we have our exam at from 10 o'clock. Can we end this class 5 minutes earlier?
Okay. So this is the last slide. Then I'm just going to discuss, and then I will just leave it, and then you can have that. Okay, quickly. Okay. So here, instead of
Okay, sir.
yeah, I'll just finish it another 2 minutes. Okay. See here, you have got the explosive charge. So it could be even TNT or RDX or a gunpowder based explosive charge, and you have got a workpiece which is placed on a die, and then the air is evacuated with the from this die, so that the air pressure is almost nil here. Then it is submerged in water, and then when you energize this explosive, fire this explosive, it is going to burst, and it is going to give very strong shock wave, and this shock wave is going to propagate, and then it is going to press this workpiece against this die, and then you can form like this. So this is the basic concept. And so here different types of configuration has been shown. So like TNT, RDX you can use. And usually it is put in water in order to confine the shock wave. And the shock wave is going to propagate in all the side. The one which is propagating downward, it is going to hit uniformly on the workpiece and cause the forming. And last method is, instead of using chemicals as explosive material, you can use a explosive wire, fuse wire. And when you are firing, passing very high amount of current through this fused wire, this wire is going to explode. And because of this explosion, it is going to generate very high pressure shock wave. And this shock wave pressure wave is going to exert pressure on the die, on this workpiece, which is kept against this die, and thereby this is going to form this type of shape. So this is the basic processes of this, and I came to end of this. Okay, fine. So I understand that you will have all many exams now. So wish you all the best. And with this, I conclude my today's talk. Okay, fine.
So when will be our NTMP test? Last test?
The test I'll just plan, and I'll just communicate to by today evening. I have to take one more class, and then on 12th I need to take one class, but then one class and one exam, one after another. If it is comfortable with you, then it is okay. But I was thinking that prepone that class on Saturday sometime when you are relatively free, and then conduct the exam on 12th, that is the Monday morning between 8 to 10. 1 hour class exam. Okay.
So, sir, timings should be decided as soon as possible. Like we have the students from other batch also, apart from 18 MF.
So, so that is what I like to know. If on Saturday, if can we have a free time between during the whole day, or till 10 o'clock in the night. So whatever is the convenient time, I need only around 45 minutes to have one topic described. That's all. And then on Monday, you will be having only 1 hour, 45 minutes exam in the morning. Okay. So I'll send a mail so that everyone can say that, okay. Okay. So in that
Okay,
case, okay, fine. So I'll send the mail. Fine. Take care.